For centuries, humanity has been captivated by the idea of giants. Yet, despite their enormous size, definitive proof of their existence remains elusive. Could it be that evidence of giants has already been uncovered but is being overlooked or deliberately concealed? From massive skeletal remains to oversized body parts, here are 20 unbelievable discoveries that suggest giants may have walked the earth. Number 20. Kandahar Giant. Some of you might already be familiar with the Kandahar Giant and have heard about it before. For those hearing about this giant for the first time, buckle up because its lore is pretty intense. The story of Kandahar began in 2002. The story goes that a U.S. military patrol in Kandahar stumbled upon a being of immense size, described as a giant, one that stood over 12 feet tall. Other eyewitnesses claimed the giant had red hair and an incredibly bad temperament. The encounter, as the story goes, wasn't a peaceful one. It resulted in the loss of a serviceman before the giant was taken down, allegedly by the combined firepower of the patrol. However, the origins of this tale are murky, with the first notable mentions appearing on conspiracy theory websites and forums before making their way into more mainstream discussions. Skeptics and rationalists point out the lack of concrete evidence supporting the existence of the Kandahar Giant. No photos, no official military reports, and no physical evidence have been presented to prove that the giant really existed. However, despite the skepticism, many believe an unknown organization hid this red-haired behemoth, and so the story of the Kandahar Giant remains among the most intriguing tales connected to these enormous beings. Number 19. Roman with gigantism. Now, this next discovery doesn't exactly reveal a giant but rather a person with an abnormality. In 1991, an ancient Roman giant was discovered near Rome. Measurement and analysis of the skeleton revealed that the man stood at a staggering 6 feet 8 inches, or 202 centimeters. That might not sound like much, but in the 3rd century AD, Rome's average man only stood at about 5.5 feet, or 167 centimeters. This means that this man towered over most, if not all, men during his lifetime. Rather than being a giant, however, this man most likely had gigantism. This was confirmed when archaeologists discovered evidence of a skull aligned with a pituitary tumor. This tumor most likely disrupted the pituitary gland, causing it to overproduce human growth hormone. Just like most people with gigantism, this man most likely perished at a young age, between 16 and 20 years old. Number 18. Gentil. The Gentil are among the alleged giants portrayed in myths and legends in Basque mythology. They're described as beings of immense size, and they have strength comparable to their stature. These giants are said to have lived alongside humans, sharing the land long before the spread of Christianity in the region. These massive and powerful beings are credited with creating the numerous dolmens and cromlechs scattered across the Basque country. These stone structures, which date back to the Neolithic and Bronze Ages, are thought to be tombs or part of ancient rituals. The story goes that these giants were responsible for their construction, lifting and placing the massive stones with ease, a task that would have been beyond the capabilities of humans at the time. However, as Christianity began to spread, the Gentil faced a dilemma. According to lore, they could foresee the coming of a new religion that would dominate the land and decided to leave, not wanting to cause conflict. In one popular tale, a Gentil throws a disc-shaped stone over a mountain, declaring that until it falls, the new religion will not arrive. The stone, however, never lands, symbolizing the eternal presence of the Gentil spirit in the Basque country. Despite their departure, the Gentil left behind a significant legacy. They're credited with teaching humans various skills and knowledge, such as agriculture and metalworking, significantly contributing to human progress in the region. In some stories, a single Gentil remains in the Basque country. Symbolism or not, many believe in the Gentil that allegedly takes care of the region today. Number 17. Greatest ape molar. This isn't evidence of a giant human, but I believe it's worth mentioning. In 2016, researchers revealed the largest ape that ever walked the planet, the Gigantopithecus. This ape species lived some 100,000 years ago and stood at a staggering height of 10 feet and weighed up to 1,100 pounds. In the past, this behemoth of a creature survived in what is now Asia. But why did it go extinct? Scientists believe that this massive ape disappeared off the face of the planet precisely because of its size. Yes, you heard that right, being large was an advantage thousands of years ago, but its size was a double-edged sword for the Gigantopithecus. They reigned over smaller creatures, but their size made them dependent on a large amount of food. During the Pleistocene period, however, more forested areas changed, making it difficult for these apes to gather enough food to survive. It was a time when smaller creatures thrived. Now, perhaps the most amazing discovery related to these creatures is their molars. You see, unlike dinosaurs, which have left us a wealth of bones to study, Gigantopithecus is known almost entirely from teeth and a few jaw fragments. These remains have survived millions of years, while the rest of the skeleton has long since disappeared. After all, teeth are incredibly durable and can survive conditions that bones cannot. The discovery of the Gigantopithecus molar is not just significant for understanding the creature itself, but also for piecing together the puzzle of primate evolution. This giant ape lived alongside early humans and other primates, and by studying its remains, scientists can gain more knowledge about the environment and conditions that shaped the evolution of primates. And yes, that includes us. Number 16. Giant finger. Discovered in the mid-20th century in Egypt, the giant finger of Bur Hooker is said to be a massive, well-preserved finger measuring an astonishing 38 centimeters in length. To put that into perspective, it's about twice the length of what you'd expect a human finger to be. This discovery suggests that if the rest of the body were in proportion to this finger, it would belong to a being that stood around 5 meters tall. That's a staggering 16-foot beast. The finder of this colossal digit was a grave robber who stumbled upon it in a tomb near Bur Hooker, Egypt. Realizing the significance of his find, he took photographs and even obtained a certificate from a doctor verifying its authenticity as a genuine human-like finger. However, despite these precautions, the relic itself has since vanished, shrouded in mystery, leaving us with only the photographs and stories to ponder upon. Skeptics and believers are at odds over the giant finger of Bur Hooker. Some suggest it's a hoax, perhaps a clever bit of sculpting meant to astound and confuse. Others, however, see it as evidence of the existence of giants, beings mentioned in mythologies and religious texts around the world. Number 15. Atakama Giant. If you fly over the Atacama Desert of Chile, you'll most likely see the Atakama Giant, but it's probably not what you're thinking of. Rather than a living being, the Atakama Giant is an enormous figure carved into the ground. That's right, it's a geoglyph. The Atakama Giant stands at an impressive 1,119 meters or 390 feet. This figure was created between 1000 and 1400 AD by the region's indigenous people. The Atakama Giant is believed to be an astronomical calendar designed to predict the rain. The positioning of the figure's arms and the accessories it wears, like the headgear, are not random. They align with the moon's movements throughout its 18.6-year lunar cycle. This alignment helps determine the best time for planting and harvesting crops, which is crucial for survival in such a harsh environment. But despite this interpretation, others believe that the Atakama Giant represents an enormous being that once blessed the barren desert. Number 14. Giant of Castell. In the late 19th century, specifically in 1890, in the small village of Castell, France, French anthropologist Georges Vacher de Lapouge stumbled upon a set of enormous human bones in a Neolithic burial site. These bones were allegedly so enormous that Lapouge himself believed they must have belonged to one of the largest humans to have ever walked the earth. The bones included fragments of a humerus, tibia, and femoral shaft that were estimated to suggest the stature of a human who might have stood around 3.5 meters tall, about 11.5 feet. To put that into perspective, the average height for men at the time was only roughly 5.5 feet. After the discovery, Lapouge, already a prominent figure in anthropology, published his findings in the journal Law Nature. It drew significant attention from the scientific community and beyond. He dubbed the individual the Giant of Castell, a name that stuck and fueled countless discussions and debates ever since. Skeptics and scientists have proposed various explanations for these giant bones, ranging from pathological conditions like gigantism to the possibility of ancient human populations with significantly greater stature. Yet no definitive answer has been universally accepted so far. A hoax? Or is it actually evidence of a giant? We can only speculate. Number 13. Nephilim. In the book of Genesis, you'll encounter beings known as the Nephilim. These creatures are said to be the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men before the Great Flood. These beings, unlike normal humans, are also called giants, and they're neither human nor divine. Throughout history, the Nephilim have been the subject of various interpretations and theories. Some view them as literal giants, pointing to various archaeological discoveries of large bones and skeletons as potential evidence, though such claims are often met with skepticism. However, others believe that the Nephilim's description in the Bible was merely metaphorical and wasn't meant to be taken literally. As such, they might not have been giants like many believed. Regardless of the truth surrounding the Nephilim, for many, they were among the giants who roamed our planet. Number 12. Patagonia Giants. The story of the Patagonia Giants began in the 16th century, when Ferdinand Magellan and his crew made their epic voyage around the world. It was during this expedition that they allegedly came across the native people of Patagonia, who were described in European accounts as giants. According to Antonio Pigafetta, a member of Magellan's expedition, These so-called giants were so much taller than the average European that the explorers were astonished. But did Magellan and his men really encounter giants? While many believe their accounts, experts and historians believe that the giants they saw were actually the Tehuelche, a nomadic group known for their impressive height compared to Europeans at the time, but certainly not the giants as described in myths and legends. Now, for reference, an average European man would have stood at around 174 centimeters, or roughly 5 feet 7 inches. But despite this explanation, the legend persisted for centuries, with various explorers and sailors claiming to have witnessed these giants firsthand. The stories contributed to the mystical aura surrounding Patagonia, painting it as a land of wonders inhabited by people of extraordinary size. In fact, maps from the 16th and 17th centuries even depicted Patagonia as the home of these giants, further embedding the myth in the collective consciousness of Europe. Despite the lack of concrete evidence to support the existence of giants, the legend of the Patagonia Giants remains today. Number 11. Horned Giants. In the late 19th century, one discovery surprised experts in Pennsylvania, particularly in a burial mound at Bradford County. During the excavation, a group of horned skeletons was found. Yes, you heard that right, horned skeletons. Needless to say, these skulls are quite horrifying to look at. These skeletal figures, dubbed the Horned Giants, instantly ignited the imagination of the public and scholars. These horned beings were described as towering over the average human, suggesting not only a significant difference in stature, but also in physical appearance with the presence of horns, a feature no known human species has. The discovery was said to have occurred in a burial mound, hinting at a previously unknown or undocumented culture that revered or was composed of these giant individuals. But, you see, while the 19th century was known for being the age of scientific discoveries, it was also a time when hoaxes and sensational writing were incredibly common. And so, there's a chance that these horned giant skulls are nothing but the result of a hoax. For many, however, these horned giants are an enigmatic race that truly existed in the past. I'll let you be the judge. Number 10. Giant's Causeway. Nestled on the rugged coast of Northern Ireland is the Giant's Causeway. This massive cluster of around 40,000 interlocking basalt columns resulted from a volcanic eruption that occurred about 60 million years ago. But for some, this UNESCO World Heritage Site is proof of the existence of giants. The story goes that the causeway was built by a giant named Finn McCool, one of the most celebrated heroes of Irish myth. The story goes that Finn was challenged to a fight by the Scottish giant Bonandanner. To face his rival, Finn built the causeway across the North Channel so they could meet. Now, from this point on, several versions of the story exist. The most popular version of the tale, however, tells us that upon reaching Scotland, Finn realized that Bonandanner was much larger than he was. Finn beat a hasty retreat back to Ireland, where his quick-thinking wife, Unac, disguised him as a baby. When Bonandanner crossed the causeway to confront Finn, he saw the disguised Finn and believed him to be the giant's baby. Fearing that the father must be truly colossal to have such a large child, Bonandanner fled back to Scotland, destroying the causeway behind him to prevent Finn from following. The story of Finn McCool has been passed down through generations and is an integral part of the Giant's Causeway's history. Giants are not only part of the beauty of this landscape but also of the lore so deeply linked to it, making it one of the greatest places connected to giants. Number 9. Prehistoric Giants of West Virginia. Historically, West Virginia has been a treasure trove of natural wonders and ancient secrets. Among these intriguing reports have surfaced, speaking of discoveries of unusually large skeletal remains. One of the most captivating aspects of these stories is the context of their discovery. Many of these accounts come from the 19th and early 20th centuries when archaeology and anthropology were in their formative stages. Reports from this era often indicate large bones unearthed during mining operations or found in burial mounds. These giants were considered to be of the Adena culture, a pre-Columbian Native American culture from 500 BCE to 100 CE. The locals believed that rather than being normal human beings, the Adena people were giants. Archaeologists and historians, however, claimed that rather than being actual giants, the prehistoric giants of West Virginia were people who unfortunately suffered from growth problems, just like gigantism and acromegaly. At a time when the average height was less than 5 feet 1 inch, standing at an average height of 6 feet would easily make you seem like a giant. Even so, the giants of West Virginia are recognized by many as accurate behemoths among humans. Number 8. 8'11" giants. Now, here's another race of giants described in a news article on May 4, 1908. Skeletons that measured over 8 feet in height were allegedly discovered in a cave in Mexico. The caves were allegedly a burial place specifically for these giants. The exact period when these giants lived wasn't specified in the news article, but it was hypothesized that they predated the Aztec people who occupied central Mexico in the post-classic period from 1300 to 1521. According to the article, a single femur of the skeleton was almost as long as an average person's entire leg. The molars of the skeletons were also said to be large enough to crack a coconut, and when measured, the skull alone was 18 inches from front to back. Unfortunately, just like the skeleton discovered in California that same year, no other solid evidence of this alleged discovery was released to the public, leading many to believe that it might just be another hoax. Number 7. Giants of Armenia. If you venture deep within the mountains of Armenia, you might reach the location where the giants of Neri once thrived. The residents of many villages in Armenia believed that over 5,000 years ago, there were cities of giants hidden among the mountains of Armenia. Numerous tombs discovered in various locations on the mountains seem to confirm that there were indeed cities on the mountains, but these findings didn't confirm the existence of the alleged giants. So far, all we have found are 12-meter-high or 39-foot megaliths that weigh an astonishing 600 tons. These structures were discovered near the village of Agarak in the Ushi province of Armenia. The locals believed that these megaliths weren't simply the remnants of a past civilization, but rather the homes of giants who walked and reigned in the region a long time ago. In one Armenian book, medieval Armenian historian Mufsas discussed how the first gods were fearsome and majestic. He claimed, and I quote, "From those people a generation of absurdly huge giants is separated. One was Haik, a famous and brave leader and an accurate bowman. For this reason, Haik was treated as the Armenian ancestry, who according to legend, was said to be of giant height and could even defeat the Babylonian king Bel. To this day, however, we're yet to find tangible evidence of these said giants. I'll let you be the judge." Number 6. Cardiff Giant. It was a mundane day in 1869 when workers in Cardiff, New York, stumbled upon a skeleton while digging on the farm of William C. Newell. None expected the discovery of a 10-foot-tall petrified man buried beneath Newell's property. With its size, the alleged giant quickly became a sensation, drawing crowds from near and far eager to glimpse what many believed to be a prehistoric giant. And while the skeleton was massive, it garnered skepticism and doubt for a while. However, many believed that the skeleton was solid evidence of the existence of past giants. But you see, the shocking part about the Cardiff Giant is that it wasn't a genuine archaeological find, but the brainchild of a New York tobacconist named George Hull. Hull was an atheist who claimed that he got the idea after an argument at a Methodist revival meeting about giants once roaming the earth, as mentioned in the Bible. Adamant to prove that he was right, he decided to create his own giant. Hull had a block of gypsum mined in Iowa, then shipped to Chicago where it was carved into the figure of a man and treated to look aged and petrified. Once the sculpture was ready, Hull transported it to Cardiff, New York, where it was buried on Newell's farm. About a year later, the discovery was made. The giant was exhumed, and Hull began charging 50 cents a head for people to see it. The Cardiff Giant became an overnight sensation, drawing thousands of spectators and stirring up widespread debate among scientists, theologians, and the general public about its origins and authenticity. The scientific community was quickly skeptical, with many declaring it a fake almost immediately. Yet, the debate and public fascination only fueled the giant's fame. I guess bad publicity is still publicity. However, Hull's greed ultimately caused his entire scheme to crumble. The success of the Cardiff Giant inspired him to sell shares in his giant to a group of businessmen. When these businessmen moved the giant to Syracuse for a more profitable exhibition, Hull attempted to replicate his success by creating a second giant, leading to suspicions and investigations that eventually uncovered the whole scheme. In 1870, Hull confessed to the hoax, revealing the detailed planning and execution behind the creation of the Cardiff Giant. Despite this, or perhaps because of it, the Cardiff Giant remains one of the most famous hoaxes in American history. Today, the Cardiff Giant is housed in the Farmers Museum in Cooperstown, New York. Number 5. Old Yellow Top. If you're from Ontario, Canada, and reside near the wilderness of Cobalt, then perhaps you've already heard about Old Yellow Top. This creature was first reportedly seen in the early 1900s, and it's a being reminiscent of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, with the difference being its distinct yellow mane that inspired its name. Descriptions of this creature depict it as a large bipedal being covered in dark fur. Sightings persisted over decades, with the last notable one being in the 1970s, each account adding layers to the creature's legend. Back in the early 20th century, Cobalt was a booming mining town. It was then that miners and residents claimed to have encountered this elusive being, describing it as a shy, non-aggressive creature that would quickly vanish into the forests. While some believe that Old Yellow Top is a giant human-like being, skeptics and scientists often attribute its sightings to misidentification, suggesting that people probably mistake bears and other wildlife for it. Number 4. 9-foot skeleton. Now here's a pretty obscure discovery. This is a photo of an article about a curious discovery on July 13, 1908. A story was published in a daily newspaper about 14 skeletons being unearthed in Santa Monica Beach, California. These skeletons weren't ordinary. Rather, they measured over 9 feet tall. If this is true, these people would have stood over 9 feet while still alive. The article also noted that the skull had the formation of an Indian head, with high cheekbones and other pronounced characteristics. The article claimed that the remains were undoubtedly over a century old. Unfortunately for us, the last news about the skeletons talked about them being brought to Santa Monica for exhibitions, and then there was nothing. It's as if the skeletons mysteriously disappeared and were never seen again. Were they deliberately hidden, or were the skeletons simply part of a hoax that ended abruptly? We're yet to know the answers. Number 3. Lovelock Cave. Nestled in the barren desert landscape of Nevada, USA, Lovelock Cave is a place deeply tied with legend, ancient myths, and archaeological discoveries. Among the stories surrounding this cavern is a race of red-haired giants called the Cetacea. According to legend, these giants were cannibals who preyed on the Paiute tribes, leading to a prolonged, fiery war. The Paiutes, determined to rid their land of this menace, cornered the last of these giants in what's now known as Lovelock Cave. After a fierce battle, the entrance was set ablaze, and any survivors were shot with arrows when they tried to escape, effectively ending the reign of the Cetacea. For a long time, the Cetacea were nothing more than figures in stories. However, in the early 20th century, guano miners excavating the cave stumbled upon a trove of artifacts, including baskets, tools, and even mummified remains. Among these discoveries were tools, bones, baskets, and weapons. However, instead of massive human bones, archaeologists discovered about 60 mummies of average height. Many believe that rather than the red-haired giants, these mummies are their victims. But if that's the case, we still have no tangible proof of the existence of these red-haired behemoths. Number 2. Giants of Ancient China. 5 feet 9 inches. That's the height of the skeletons discovered in China back in 2017. This might not be a giant by today's standards, but for people in the past, the men interred in these 5,000-year-old graves are considered titans. It was believed that these men lived during the Neolithic period, at a time when most people were less than 5 feet tall. Standing at almost 6 feet will definitely make you feel like a giant. Archaeologists also discovered another graveyard that revealed a skeleton even taller than his peers, approximately 6 feet 2 inches. That's just his bone structure. If he had flesh and were alive today, he would definitely exceed more than 6 feet 2 inches. But how did these people grow taller than the rest of their peers? Did they win the genetic lottery? Scientists believe that the reason lies in their status. You see, researchers theorized that the giant men were people of high status at the time. For this reason, they had better access to nutritious food, water, and healthcare. These people had high stature in every sense of the word. Now it's time for today's topic. It seems that amateur archaeologists keep stumbling upon the most unbelievable things. You see, in the 19th century, a team of amateur archaeologists made it their mission to scour the American continent. It brought them to North America, and there they found a giant in a cave near the Grand Canyon. What happened next shocked the whole world. This alleged giant is far larger than the ones we've seen or heard of before. It was said that the skull of the skeleton was larger than an average adult's. Its skull alone measured over 7 feet from top to chin. What's more bizarre was the fact that the skeleton was shackled. What's unusual is that, aside from this photo and a small bone fragment, the archaeologists couldn't produce any other evidence regarding this find. The reason is equally odd, with the archaeologists claiming that upon returning to the site, people were already excavating and promptly removing the skeleton. Now, whether this is true or not remains debatable. Is this just another story or a hoax? Is someone trying to hide that giants really existed in the past? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Number 1. Ecuador Giants. In the first quarter of 2019, geologist Theophilos Tolkaridis and archaeologist Florencio Delgado discovered what is now known as the Hulco Giant. This skeleton was found near the village of Hulco in Ecuador's Manabi province. It was said that the Hulco Giant lived during the Mantahuancavilca culture from 1200 to 1600 CE. According to the duo who discovered his remains, he stood at approximately 7 feet when he was still alive. Again, for a person who lived over 5 millennia ago, 7 feet is more than enough to be considered a giant. There are some claims that the measurement of the giant's height was massively exaggerated to gather attention, but if true, then the Hulco Giant would be among the tallest creatures to have walked our planet. While there's still no definitive proof of giants, there are countless theories surrounding these mysterious creatures, and who knows, One day we might uncover undeniable evidence that confirms their existence. But for now, we can only theorize and speculate. Be sure to check out more of our cool content popping up on the screen, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, everyone.